Let the treatment of the Honorable Kentanji Brown serve as a reminder as to the very little respect the world collectively has for black women that have power, and even more so, how worse it is for black women who they deem have no power. Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse podcast. So, Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast, we're back with another episode. We're going to review the Supreme Court hearings, committee hearings for the Honorable Kentanji Brown. I did not catch the first day, but I did catch the second day, which was a carryover from the first day. And then day three, I caught bits and pieces of. So we're just going to get right into it. Wow. Kudos to the Honorable Kentanji Brown for maintaining grace, even though she was clearly exasperated by Cruz, Cotton, and Senator Hawley and Senator Lindsey Graham, as I would be too. Wow. That was amazing to see. But let this be a reminder for those of you out here as to the realities that black women face, and on a larger scale, black people face, by whites, and more so powerful whites looking for a moment. For the most part, she did extremely well. She answered all the questions in great detail. There were moments where, because of white males looking for a moment, each time they would drill the same question and escalate, get frustrated because they're getting an answer that doesn't satisfy them, she would reframe her answer. She would answer it differently. She would give an answer that's from a different angle, still satisfying the question. For day two, a lot of the not a lot of the Republicans, Senator Cruz, Senator Hawley, Senator Cotton, and Senator Graham were obsessed with her answer, her approach to questions, and to around the case, the Hawkins case that she presided over, where she gave the person 3 months of jail time. The tip-off on day two was Senator Hawley, which, by the way, was the senator that gave the Capitol insurgents last year the power fist as he was walking towards the Capitol. Right. The question he asked was a policy question. He wanted to know why in the Hawkins case in a case where the guy had all these images and was uploading it to the internet or the computer or through his phone, only got 3 months. If in the recommendation was to give him the max of, I believe, 15 to 18 months. So her answer to the question was essentially, in spite of the recommendation that's in the policy is essentially outdated. The policy at the time it was written was only made reference to scenarios involving pornography that is mailed around, distributed by mail. Other facts in the case was that although he had X amount of pictures or content or media, that he did not violate, assault children, target children. At some point, there was an attempt by an undercover police officer by way of chat on the internet where he offered his 12-year-old daughter, which didn't exist, to this guy to have sex with her. He didn't entertain it. He didn't answer. He didn't respond. At the very most, the guy was curious and went on about his merry way. But also, with those facts and the answer that she gave the first time, that didn't satisfy Holly. So she gave him an answer from a different angle. Again, it's a policy question. Judges don't influence policy. They're there to serve and, judge or whatever in the cases. But it was interesting for me watching that this white man, a Republican, who is dramatizing his position by, reiterating in the venue, I have kids and, thinking about the kids, this bothers me. And it's like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you want to give a black kid, I think he had turned 18 by that time, like after everything was said and done, 18, the maximum sentence, 18 months in jail. That's very telling for me. This was not a repeated offense. This was not somebody that had previous instances, had even gone so far as to consummate whatever urges that's implied here. This was a one-off situation. And not predatory in any means upon kids. Compared to the shit I've seen in like Forensic Files and Unsolved Mysteries and Court TV, where, there are men out here that take kids to abandoned houses, do stuff to them, some leading to murder. Ultimately, there is some sexual assault, and they go to like another city and do it again, and the physical nature of it. But that's not the case here. Yet you want to know why this black judge didn't sentence this black guy to 18 months in jail for that. So in her numerous attempts to quench Senator Hawley's thirst, I mean, he's damn near foaming at the mouth at this point, she takes a logical, practical approach where she makes a connection with since his position is, why did you not, the sentence should fit the amount of content that he had. Not whether or not he's a repeat offender, if he's an actual threat. Factors that would play into another case. But because he had a high volume of content and media, he should be sentenced to 18 months. Not because it was just a one-off. Also very telling. So to that, she said in her second or third answer, the degradation, there's a particular range of media amounts, 0 to 100 or 500, 500 to 1,000. And at this point, she is trying to appease this man, because he's not letting up, the Senator Hawley guy, about this. Now, mind you, each of the senators that are questioning or on this committee have a fixed amount of time, because this is a lengthy process. But they spent most of day 2 obsessing over this. Mind you, beforehand, months before, they each had access to the totality of the findings, of the analysis, of the facts of the case. Yet they cherry pick to fit their position or their reasoning and their tone when speaking with her, or interrogating her aggressively, shamelessly, and disrespectfully. It's like they were talking to her like, you don't know better, like you have it right there. Why didn't you do this? But at no point after they had access to all this information, in this opportunity, have a supporting argument from the case file to support this guy requiring to serve 18 months in jail. Senator Cotton, just the fact that his last name is Cotton makes my gums itch, had a very condescending, patronizing tone when talking to her. Senator Cruz, oh my God. Like, he just, between that and the book thing, like, from what I gather from the committee confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court, the Republicans were trying to lay traps. The line of questioning over these recommendations from the probation center or the probation office and all these other entities that are just there as a guidance. Like, that's not something that she had to abide by. It's more so just a recommendation. Um, it all just stems back to an outdated policy that was written when all we had was mail, like postal mail. Didn't have cell phones, didn't have the internet yet. So you're coming at her about policy when, as Congress, as the Senate, that influences legislation and can vote on legislation. A trap. But they went on for the majority of day two about it. At some point, there was other trap questions about books, and Senator Cruz asking, well, do you think babies can be racist? That was a trap. There was a question by a woman senator asking, Your Honor, how do you define a woman? That was a trap. There was a considerable amount of steam coming off of Senator Graham's head, because again, carrying over into day three, again about the Hawkins child porn case. Why such a light sentence? Now, for those of us out there that are familiar with Senator Graham's alleged transgressions, he's the last person to get hype about predatory behavior, or implied or otherwise. Last person. Allegedly. But watching this this confirmation hearing with this dynamic between certain members of the committee, the Senate committee, and the honorable Kentanji Brown, it's the aggression that's coming from the Republican members. Most of these guys are lawyers, so they know the law and they know policy is outdated. Yet they're expecting, which of course this wasn't the case when they were sitting across from Judge Kavanaugh. Just how they treat and handle black women and black people, which is a reflection of the attitude and how they feel deep down about us and about black women. And there's definitely a connection between the two. That is wild to me. Like, she is more than qualified. She is more than suitable for the position. Suitable to be on the Supreme Court. And I believe she will be the youngest on the Supreme Court. She's in her early 50s. And this cat and mouse game that they were playing with her, where they were intentionally asking her questions based on things not relevant to her position and her expertise, but she still managed to entertain the questions anyway. I mean, I can only imagine how frustrating it has to be. Not only in this situation, but just in life, just generally in life, to be intelligent, to be in an executive position, and have to deal with that. Like, everybody knows of everybody that's sitting in those chairs across from her asking her those questions are educated, are critical thinkers, and like I said earlier, has access to the case files, has access to any bit of information regarding her work as a judge, her work as a lawyer, her work as just an overall judicial official. And they are presenting themselves as just ignorant barbarians. For sure. You're not answering my question. They said that repeatedly, and each time they said it, it was just so nasty. You constantly cutting her off as she's answering questions, like, utmost disrespectful. You know, the Republican white boys, white men, whatever you want to call them, is nothing more than a boys' club. And it's clear watching those, just off of day 2 alone, which was several hours, by the way, that they are not keen on a woman joining. On top of that, a black woman joining. On top of that, an intelligent, successful, effective, practical, sensible, logical black lawyer and judge joining the Supreme Court. That's why they were so obsessed for damn near 2 days over her order or her judgment in the Hawkins case. It wasn't about the sentence, because she answered in more than one way the question. That's a policy question. She doesn't deal with policy. She said, you know, it's not really about volume. It's about whether or not this guy is a repeated offender. Like, we know the process. You know, the judges out here, especially when it pertains to child pornography cases, from what I've seen, it's ultimately down to the offense, the nature, and the magnitude. Is this guy a repeat, or this woman a repeat offender? How long is the rap sheet? How offensive? Equals, you know, the sentence that they receive. It's a no-brainer. It's just weird as fuck to me. Very weird as fuck. And it's very unfortunate that we are a fourth of the way through the 22nd century, the 21st century. 21st century, sorry y'all. And we still have to put up with this. And my hat's off to the Honorable Kentanji Brown. that for her grace and her humility and her strength, um, even though she was clearly exhausted and exasperated by some of those Republican men, as to their intentional ignorance and remedial and obsession with their questions and pretending like they don't get what she's saying. She's a Virgo like me. We hate repeating ourselves. So I know if I was tired, she was damn near close to death just having to repeat herself or having to hear the repetition of the same question. And along the way, people being aggressive towards her and nasty in their tone, looking down on her. Almost on some, how dare you? Well, I belong here, so. Yeah, those 3 days really exposed more than people are aware. And it's, just a repeated cycle, examples from a repeated cycle that we experience in this world, particularly in this nation. And I think it's going to take more consciousness of more people to realize, A, that it happens on every level. This being political, legal, judicial, high level. You're talking about the Supreme Court, the highest court. Like, before you get even as you're interviewing to be for a seat at the highest court, you still are met with that kind of shit. I mean, I'm exhausted just over the fact that she had to interview like three or more separate times for the same job. Like, I've had to do that shit before. For a job in DC, I was like, I have to keep coming down here for not even a high grade position. It was like a 9 or something. I had to come down on more than one occasion in the heart of DC in the middle of the morning to interview for a job. To be in the office with like 6 or 7 other people. I made it to round 2, but I ultimately didn't end up getting the job. And I know why, even though the girl in the job said, it wasn't going to be a big deal, it was ultimately a big deal. But yeah, that's some exhausting shit. And, she's there all day on these 3 days for the show. And they were on 100 day 1. Because there was some recap of it in day 2. But wow, white men, a trip. White Republican men, a mess. Lindsey Graham, a mess. Senator Hawley, a mess. Senator Cotton, a mess. Senator Cruz, dumpster fire. Like, wow. Just tell us how you really feel about black women and black people in general. At this point, I mean, they were already a mess leading up to this, and other countless examples as far as like their feelings and their attitudes towards civil matters regarding black people. Civil matters and legal matters as it pertains to humans and property over life, how much they empower that mess, and how dangerous, how that all of that plays a dangerous role in the degradation of society. Y'all, I'm sure she'll be on the Supreme Court. I mean, at this point, that's probably the worst it's going to get for her. And it's a shame that it had to happen on such a high level. But, man, I love her. And I'll be watching as a fan. I mean, I'm already a fan of her. To maintain grace under stress and to be passively aggressively judged like that by way of the line of questioning and the tone in which it was at. The line of questions were asked. Like, we black women are amazing. Well, this is Mr. Fox Therapy's podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe. Stay hydrated, keep your eyes on your own paper, and stay in the fucking house. Because I'm tired of being on this Omarion tour. Just saying. Anyway, bye.